What's going on, world? It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we'll be continuing our Pluto through houses series, and we'll be taking a look at Pluto in the 11th house. So, let's get into it. What's Pluto? Pluto is the soul itself. It is the psyche of the soul. It is the desires that emanate from the soul, as well as the situations in which the soul is placed to trigger its evolution and transformation. The 11th house, the original house of Aquarius, the house of our group associations, our humanitarian ideals. In essence, it represents the thing that we stand behind within society. Alright, so you know how the 10th house relates to government. The 11th house would be the parties that are within the government, Democrat, Republican, all of that. Okay, so when you have a soul that has Pluto in the 11th house, this is a soul that is coming into this lifetime to really not necessarily conform to groups, but to recognize or activate their inner individuality or inner authority through that of group partnerships. And keep in mind, Pluto is transformation. So the soul is going to undergo a transformation regarding how they assimilate themselves or fit into groups. So you have a couple different type of Pluto in the 11th house people. And a large part of this is going to be predicated on where the other planets in the chart fall, especially, sign and house. So we have, let's keep in mind the natural sextile to the 3rd house and to the 7th house, right? And, pardon me, I should have said trine. The natural trine to the 7th house and the 3rd house, as well as the sextile to the 9th house. Now, these are all, the 3rd house is the house of siblings, 7th house, house of partnerships, 9th house is the house of higher ideals and, beliefs. So, the Pluto in the 11th house person, if they have energy within these houses, this is going to definitely show the groups in which they are going to be placed in, that is going to have that first amount of impact upon them. But one type of Pluto in the 11th individual will be, and especially this type of person, will be thirsty for acceptance from the group. Alright? Because of that social aspect towards them, they're seeking to carve out their identity through a group. And normally what happens is that these people are kind of forceful in that way. Like almost in the sense that they're willing to do anything to be a part of the group or gain acceptance. Right? And with that comes conformity. So what will happen is that the individual, whether it be from siblings, family, friendships, religion, they'll early on in life buy into what is being taught to them because of their need for acceptance. But as Pluto would have it, the soul here is growing. Remember, it's at the top of the chart, so you gotta look at it in the sense of like the individual state of the soul is coming, to form. And eventually there's a situation that occurs that makes the individual look at the group differently. Now keep in mind the square to the 2nd house is normally something that clashes with the value system of the individual. And this is the interesting thing about evolution. We grow and we have the values that are taught to us by our family, but then when we evolve, we create our own. So I just use the example of, let's say, like, the individual is around people who are really closed-minded, right? And they have like a Venus and Aquarius, but they're placed in a situation where they grew up in a town where they hung around, one race or one type of religion, right? And as they get older and they're forming their own opinions, they realize like, wow, I don't agree with this. I see things differently. So I say all that to say this. The individual with Pluto in the 11th house is going to be placed in a situation where eventually they rebel against the group. But this first type of individual is the conformist. They're the conformists that almost in the sense of, think of like Malcolm X. Malcolm X joined the Nation of Islam, and as he grew in his awareness, he began to see cracks and flaws within the nation, and he eventually rebelled against them. All right? So think of it in that sense. Then you have the Pluto in the 11th individual who, no matter what, they just feel like a loner. They've always been a loner. They're never really accepted within groups, okay? Or they never really feel or they never really feel understood within groups. And it could be as simple as what they find interesting. Now here's a psychological aspect of it, right? You can gravitate towards what you gravitate towards, right? But the individual is aware of what the collective standards are. So let's just say the individual is growing and they're like, okay, I'm an Asian male, and these are the standards of Asian cultures, and these are the standards of Asian males, but this is how I feel within myself, right? That causes, instead of trying to naturally express themselves, they kind of alienate themselves, and therefore it kind of makes it easier for the group not to accept them. This is like one of those points where you see that your attitude attracts certain things to you. All right, so that's a key thing. That's an individual who's just, no matter what, they're not accepted by the group, and they kind of have to do their own thing. But eventually they are placed in situations in which they have to be honest about who they are and what they're about, right? And then you have this middle person. The middle person who exists within the group but keeps their true self or desires hidden, right? So, and I give this example. It's different now, but when I was growing up, not a lot of African Americans were into anime. And if you were into anime, you kind of like had a different personality. For instance, if you were into anime back then, more than likely you weren't like big into hip hop or sports, right? But then you may have an individual who is, but because he is existing in this world where he says, okay, he sees that this is accepted by the culture and this is not, he keeps hidden that particular part of himself. All right? And this individual, as they progress, that particular thing that they're hiding, now mind you, this could pertain to like sexuality as well. I'm just giving a general overview here, right? Eventually, that particular thing becomes, they get thrown into a situation where they have to fight for that cause. Or, they may develop more confidence, to display it. But normally it's a situation that occurs that forces them to bring that thing that was once hidden to the surface, okay, and stand behind that. So keep going to keep going with my anime example. That kid may have been like a really good artist, and he gets to college and he decides he wants to study like animation and stuff, and then boom, and this will come to a surprise as all his friends like, I never knew you were into this, but now he's about to become a creator of this stuff. All right. So I hope all of this makes sense. But if you are out there with Pluto in the 11th house, like I said, see which individual you are and ultimately seek to bring balance towards this area of life. It's about standing up for what you believe in, okay? Not being afraid to go against the grain. So of course, we're going to have to check aspects here. You want to see where the ruler of this house is placed. Okay, so let's say we have someone with Pluto and Libra here, ruler being Venus, and then Venus is placed into your 4th house, into the sign of Pisces, right? There may be a situation in which you have to embrace. You may have to embrace your group, right? Your group more than your family, because there's a lot of just drama or things regarding your family that hold you back or stunt your growth, right? There can be situations in which the group's ideals conflict with what you've been taught. Sometimes, but in overall, you'll just need to bring a particular sense of balance towards these areas, almost as existing in both worlds, right? But then also being true to yourself in the sense of being able to let go of what no longer honors your growth. All right. So it's not necessarily a tough position, but it's one where the person just they struggle to find that common ground between themselves and others. But the more you embrace, that soul desire, or where your soul is leading you, the more everything comes into focus and balance. All right. So this is my interpretation of Pluto in the 11th house. Feel free to chime in if you have this position. Let me know how it's been playing out for you. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, feel free to do so. Till next time, peace.